My name is Emma. I'm 22 years old, and this is the story of the love I never saw until it was gone. But to tell you that story, I have to go back to the very beginning. I first met Noah when I was 10 years old. Back then, I didn't think of it as meeting. He wasn't the kind of boy you met the way you meet someone loud or bold, the kind of person who fills a room with noise. Noah slipped into the edges of things. Into the corners of classrooms. Into the spaces nobody else thought about. He was the boy who always sat at the back of the class, near the window. I can still picture him there, his desk angled slightly toward the glass, so he could look outside whenever he wanted to. His posture was always straight, never slouched like the other boys, and his face was calm in a way that almost felt too old for his age. He didn't raise his hand when the teacher asked a question. He didn't shout jokes across the room like the boys who wanted attention. He didn't even join in when the others whispered about silly things during lessons. But he was there. Quiet. Watching. Not in a strange way, no. It wasn't that at all. It was more like, he noticed things no one else cared enough to notice. I remember one of the very first times I realized this. I was at my desk, writing furiously in my workbook, trying to finish the math problems before the teacher collected them. I dropped my pencil. Before I could even lean down to pick it up, a hand appeared, holding it out to me. Noah's hand. His expression was neutral, his gaze already drifting back toward the window as if it was nothing. "Thanks," I whispered. He just gave the smallest nod, then looked away. That was Noah. Always helping, never waiting for recognition. At that age, I didn't think much of it. Kids don't really notice subtleties. I thought he was just shy, maybe even a little odd, because he didn't laugh too loud or run around at recess the way everyone else did. He carried a notebook with him everywhere. Sometimes, when the class was loud and restless, I caught glimpses of him sketching in it, trees, shapes, little pieces of the world he seemed to capture when no one was looking. And though I wouldn't realize it until much later, he was always close enough to help me, but never so close that I felt crowded. There was the day of the sports meet, for example. I was running in one of the races. My friends cheered from the sidelines, my heart was pounding with excitement, and then halfway across the field, I tripped and fell hard onto the ground. The cheers continued, not for me, but for the winners who crossed the finish line. My friends hesitated, unsure whether to run onto the track or stay back. But Noah didn't hesitate. He was there before I could even push myself up. "Here," he said softly, brushing the dirt off my scraped palms. He helped me to my feet, then offered his water bottle without a word. I remember taking it, drinking, and forcing a small smile. "Thanks." Again, just that small nod. No spotlight. No fuss. He slipped back to the sidelines like nothing had happened. That was Noah. There was another day. I had forgotten my lunch. I sat under the big tree at the edge of the playground, trying not to let the tears fall, because I didn't want anyone to laugh at me. A shadow passed by and then, without a word, a sandwich was placed beside me. When I looked up, Noah was already walking away, his back straight, his steps quiet. He didn't wait for thanks. He never did. And I, silly as I was, never thought twice. I just assumed he was the nice boy, the kind who didn't talk much. I didn't see what was really behind it. Looking back now, I realize that Noah's love story for me started long before I even understood the word love. But at 10 years old, I was just a girl chasing laughter, chasing noise, chasing anything that sparkled loudly enough to catch my attention. And Noah. He was the quiet boy in the back, the one I didn't know I should have been paying attention to all along. Time passed, but Noah never changed much. Year after year, classroom after classroom, he always seemed to end up near me without ever forcing himself there. By the time we were 12, everyone had started forming little groups. There were the loud kids who joked around, the girls who always braided each other's hair, the sporty boys who couldn't sit still. And then there was Noah, still near the window, still with his quiet sketches, still slipping through the days like a soft breeze no one bothered to notice. Except sometimes, when I slowed down long enough, I noticed him. Like the day our teacher assigned us group projects. I was partnered with two girls who cared more about gossiping than actually working. I was frustrated, trying to balance all the work by myself. By the end of class, my notes were messy, my paper half finished, and my patience gone. As everyone rushed out, I sat there rubbing my forehead, muttering under my breath. That's when Noah walked past. He didn't say a word. He just set a neatly folded page on my desk. When I opened it, I realized it was a summary of the lesson, written in his small, tidy handwriting, everything I had missed while struggling with my partners. I looked up, ready to say something, but he was already gone. Another time, during art class, my brush rolled off the desk and onto the floor, leaving a streak of paint across my shoes. I groaned, embarrassed, while everyone else laughed. Noah bent down quietly, picked up the brush, and handed me a piece of tissue without saying anything. He didn't laugh. He didn't make a big deal of it. He just noticed. That was the thing about him, Noah always noticed. But I didn't. Not in the way I should have. At recess, I was always busy chasing after the loudest friendships, running across the playground with girls who talked about crushes and the latest songs. Noah never joined. He'd be sitting under a tree, sketching something in his notebook. His head tilted slightly, as though the world around him was far more interesting than any conversation in the classroom. Once, curiosity got the better of me. I wandered over while he was bent over the page, his pencil moving quickly but carefully. "What are you drawing?" I asked, leaning down. He froze, quickly closing the book. "Nothing," he muttered. I frowned. "Come on, let me see." But he shook his head, eyes lowered. "It's not finished." I sighed, rolling my eyes, and ran back to my friends. But later, when I walked by again, I caught a glimpse of the page before he noticed me. It was a sketch of the playground, the swings, the benches, even the old oak tree. But what caught me off guard was that he had drawn me too. Me, sitting on the bench with my friends, my head tilted back in laughter. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. And maybe that was the first of many silences between us. The years blurred together. Middle school turned into high school. We got taller, older, more complicated. But Noah. He was still the same quiet boy. He was always there, though, in small ways. Like the day, I was running late and spilled my bag of books across the hallway. Students rushed past, some laughing, some not even looking. And then Noah knelt down beside me, gathering the books in neat stacks, even putting them back in the right order before handing them to me. "Thanks," I mumbled, cheeks warm. He just nodded again, that same quiet nod, before slipping back into the crowd. All the time, I was sitting on the bleachers, watching a basketball game. The boy I had a crush on was playing, and I was cheering loudly. When he waved at the crowd, I was convinced it was for me. I felt so special. But when I glanced sideways, there was Noah at the far end of the bleachers, sitting alone, his gaze not on the game, but on me. I didn't understand it then. I thought maybe he was just spaced out, maybe he wasn't even watching me. But now, looking back, I know. He was. Always watching. Not in a way that demanded, but in a way that cared. He didn't need to be seen. He just wanted to make sure I was okay. And still, I didn't see it. Because I was too busy looking for love that shouted, too distracted by the boys who knew how to be noticed. Noah never shouted. He never competed. He never demanded my attention. He just waited. And I let him wait far too long. I remember the day, as clearly as if it were carved into the walls of my heart. It wasn't extraordinary to anyone else, but to me and to Noah, it became a turning point. The afternoon sun was soft, spilling a golden hue across the fields behind our houses. It was that quiet hour between late afternoon and evening, when the air smelled faintly of earth and leaves, and the world seemed to pause before nightfall. I had gone out with my notebook, hoping to scribble down a few scattered thoughts, as I often did. Writing had always been my way of untangling emotions. Noah had followed, as he usually did, hands tucked into his pockets, eyes glancing everywhere except at me. We sat on the old wooden fence that separated the open fields from the small path leading into the woods. The fence was weathered, its paint peeling from years of sun and rain, but it was ours. Countless afternoons had been spent there, laughing, teasing, sometimes just sitting in silence. It was a place that belonged to us alone. I noticed, though, that day felt different. Noah wasn't laughing. He wasn't teasing me about how messy my handwriting was or stealing my notebook to draw silly doodles. Instead, his shoulders seemed heavier, his silence deeper. "What's wrong with you today?" I asked, nudging him with my elbow. "You're too quiet. It's starting to scare me." He chuckled, but it was hollow, almost forced. His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, where the fading sunlight painted streaks of orange and pink across the sky. "Nothing's wrong," he murmured. Then, after a pause, "Actually, no. Something is." I tilted my head, searching his face. His jaw was clenched, his brow slightly furrowed. He looked like someone carrying a weight too big to be hidden much longer. "Noah," I said softly, "you know you can tell me anything." For a moment, he didn't answer. The silence between us stretched long and tense, and my heartbeat quickened without me understanding why. Finally, he turned toward me, and his eyes, those familiar, gentle brown eyes, held a storm I had never seen before. "I need to say this," he began, his voice low but firm. "And I don't know if it'll ruin everything between us. But if I don't tell you, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." My breath caught. I didn't know what he was about to say, but the weight of his words pressed against me. I waited, my hands fidgeting with the edges of my notebook, my throat suddenly dry. "I love you," he said. The words weren't playful. They weren't casual, the way we sometimes threw around the phrase when joking about our friendship. They were heavy. Raw. Real. "I've loved you for a long time," he continued, his voice trembling now. "Longer than I even realized. You're the best part of my life. And I don't know how to keep pretending it's just friendship when, for me, it's so much more." The world stilled. I stared at him, stunned, my mind scrambling to catch up with the confession that hung in the air between us. My heart pounded, but not in the way I thought it would. "Noah," my voice came out barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say." His eyes dropped, and I could see the way his shoulders sank. He looked like someone bracing for rejection, for the shattering of something he cherished. "You don't have to say anything," he said quickly, forcing a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. "You mean too much to me, and I couldn't go on without telling you." I sat there, torn. Noah was everything, my constant, my safe place, my laughter when the world felt heavy. But love? Romantic love? I wasn't sure. The line between deep friendship and something more blurred in that moment, and I didn't know how to cross it. Part of me wanted to reach out, to tell him that maybe, just maybe, I felt something too, something unnamed, fragile, but real. But another part of me hesitated, afraid that if I said the wrong thing, I'd lose him forever. So I did what I always did when fear got in the way, I retreated. Noah, I said softly, carefully choosing my words, you're my best friend. You've always been my best friend. I don't want to lose that. His face flickered, hope, then pain, then the mask of a smile again. You won't lose me, he said quickly. I promise. I just needed you to know. I nodded, but my chest ached. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows. We sat in silence after that, the air heavy with everything said and unsaid. Noah looked back at the horizon, but his hands clenched tightly in his lap, as if holding himself together. That night, when I lay in bed, his words replayed in my mind over and over. I love you. The way he said it, the rawness in his voice, the vulnerability in his eyes, it haunted me. And though I didn't say it aloud, something inside me shifted. Because maybe, just maybe, I loved him too. But I was too afraid to admit it, even to myself. Time has a strange way of folding in on itself. 1 year bled into the next, and before I realized it, Noah had become a rhythm in my life. He was always there, woven into the corners of my days like a soft thread you don't notice until it snaps. We didn't speak every day, not in the way Liam and I did. With Liam, my phone buzzed with constant messages, little jokes, impatient, where are you, texts, dramatic declarations of love. With Noah, silence spoke louder than words. He didn't chase my attention. He didn't need to. Somehow, his presence carried a weight without demanding space. When I struggled with work, late nights, impossible deadlines, it was Noah who sent food deliveries to my apartment door without ever signing his name. But I knew. No one else knew how much I hated cooking when I was stressed, or how I always forgot to eat when my mind was tangled in pressure. I confronted him once about it. Noah, I said over coffee, you don't have to keep doing these things. I know it's you. He shrugged, his eyes soft but steady. Maybe I like knowing you're okay. That's all. He never said more, and I never pressed. With Liam, the world was fireworks, bright, loud, impossible to ignore. He pulled me into parties, into noisy laughter, into dizzying nights where I felt alive but exhausted. With Noah, the world was a soft morning light, the kind that slips through curtains and warms the skin without you noticing. And yet, I kept choosing Liam. Maybe because he was exciting. Maybe because he gave me the illusion of being wanted, needed, cherished. Maybe because I was too young, too blind to see the difference between being desired and being loved. Noah never told me how he felt. Not once. But there were moments, oh, there were moments. The way his gaze lingered a second too long. The way his voice lowered when he said my name. The way his hands sometimes trembled when he handed me a cup of tea. I felt it. I knew it. And still, I pretended not to. Because to acknowledge it would mean facing the truth, that the quiet love he carried was worth more than all the noise Liam drowned me in. But I wasn't ready. And so, I kept drifting, caught between the man who set me on fire and the man who kept me warm. Life has a way of splitting you into two versions of yourself. On one side, there was me with Liam, the girl who wanted to believe in fireworks, in love that burned so brightly it erased all doubts. With him, everything was loud. The laughter, the fights, the kisses that made me dizzy, the silences that made me ache. He was passion wrapped in unpredictability. He made me feel wanted, and yet, sometimes, I felt small. On the other side, there was me with Noah. He never demanded, never competed, never raised his voice. With him, I wasn't trying to be someone better, or prettier, or smarter. I was just me. He saw the parts one tried to hide, and somehow, he loved me more for them. But when you're young, you don't always choose the quiet kind of love. You chase the one that feels like a storm. I remember one night vividly. Liam and I had fought, over something small. I can't even recall now, but I was crying in my room, curled against my pillow. My phone buzzed. A message from Noah. I'm outside. I wiped my eyes, peeked out, and there he was, standing under the streetlight, with 2 cups of hot chocolate in his hands. His hair was messy, his jacket half-zipped. He didn't ask why I was upset. He just sat beside me on the porch, handed me the warm cup, and said, "You don't have to talk. Just drink. It helps." That was Noah. Always showing up, always knowing what I needed before I did. But I never let myself fall into that world fully. Every time I started to notice how safe I felt around him, how my laughter came easier in his presence, guilt tugged at me. Liam was my boyfriend. I told myself loyalty meant ignoring the quiet pull of my heart. So, I kept Noah in the shadows of my life, even though, deep down, he was the light. Liam and I became inseparable in those months after college. He was older, confident, already stepping into the adult world with a steady job and a clear plan. Being with him made me feel as though I had leapt ahead, skipping the messy uncertainty most people my age seemed to drown in. He'd take me to dinners where people wore suits, where glasses clinked against candlelight, and I'd sit there in my simple dress, trying to act like I belonged. Noah never said a word about Liam, but I could see it in his eyes. Sometimes, when I'd meet him after class, Noah would ask, "How was your day?" in that gentle way of his. I'd answer with stories about Liam, his laugh, his plans, the things we did together, and Noah would smile, though the smile never reached his eyes. I told myself it didn't matter. That Noah and I were just friends. That his silence was just Noah being Noah. But deep down, I knew. One evening, Liam surprised me with tickets to a jazz concert. I was thrilled. Jazz wasn't really my thing, but the idea of dressing up, of holding his hand in a dimly lit hall while music swirled around us, made me giddy. I rushed home to get ready, my heart racing. As I stood in front of the mirror, applying lipstick with shaky hands, Noah knocked on my door. He had a notebook in his hand, one of those worn ones he always carried, and a shy smile on his face. "Hey," he said. "I just thought, maybe we could grab some coffee. Haven't really talked in a while." The timing was cruel. I stared at him, torn, but Liam would be at my door in minutes. I laughed it off, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Can we do another time? Liam's taking me out tonight." Something flickered across Noah's face. He nodded quickly, too quickly. "Of course. Another time." He left, his notebook pressed tightly against his chest. That night, at the concert, Liam leaned close and whispered things that made me blush, things that made me feel wanted, desired, chosen. And yet, even as I laughed and swayed to the music, an image haunted me, Noah's retreating back as he walked away, alone. Life with Liam in the city was like stepping into a new world. He was full of plans and energy. He wanted us to visit new restaurants, to go to rooftop parties, to buy clothes that matched the fashion magazines. I followed him into this life, because I wanted to believe in it. He was exciting, and part of me thought that maybe this was what growing up meant, choosing the bright lights, even if they burned my eyes sometimes. Noah, though, never quite left my orbit. He had a way of staying present without intruding. He would call now and then, asking if I was eating enough, if I'd been to the doctor when I got sick, if I needed anything for my work. Sometimes, when my fights with Liam left me shaken, Noah was the one who noticed without me telling. A simple, "Are you okay?" from him would undo me, because he could hear the truth I was trying to hide. Still, I kept my walls. I told myself he was a friend, nothing more. I ignored the way his voice softened when he said my name, the way he always ended calls with, "Take care of yourself, please." I wanted so badly to make my choice with Liam the right one, to not look back. But slowly, cracks appeared. Liam's temper was quick, his love sometimes conditional. He wanted me to be softer when I was strong, and stronger when I felt soft. He didn't understand my silences. He didn't know how to sit with me in the quiet. Noah did. There were evenings when Liam stormed out after an argument, and I'd sit by the window, wondering what I had done wrong. My phone would buzz, and it would be Noah, just checking in. "Want to talk?" Sometimes I did. Sometimes just knowing he was there made me breathe easier. He never judged. He never said I should leave. He just listened. And all the while, I didn't see what it cost him, to love me quietly, to support me while watching me choose someone else. Life with Liam had begun like a dream, but dreams always fade when daylight comes. At first, he was attentive, eager, full of plans for us. We spent weekends wandering the city, eating at small cafes, holding hands like two people who believed the world belonged to them. I thought that was love, laughter and grand gestures, promises whispered into the night. But slowly, cracks appeared. He was ambitious, and ambition is a hungry thing. His hours grew longer. His phone calls grew shorter. His words sometimes sharp, sometimes careless. I would sit waiting for him with dinner cooling on the table, and he would arrive late, exhausted, distracted, his mind already chasing tomorrow. I told myself it was normal. Love requires patience, doesn't it? I convinced myself that if I just endured, if I just smiled a little longer, things would return to how they were in the beginning. And through it all, Noah was there. Not in the center of my world, but at its edges, like a quiet guardian. He never pushed, never pried. He would pass by the bakery where I worked, leave a coffee at the counter with no note, but I always knew it was him. On days when my smile felt too heavy to wear, I would find small reminders, flowers on my doorstep, a simple "hope you're okay" text that never asked for more. Sometimes I would wonder why. Why he still lingered, when my heart belonged to someone else. But then I would push the thought away, afraid of what it meant. Because deep inside, I knew. He loved me in ways Liam never quite could. And I was too blind, too stubborn, to admit it.